very difficult to use solar cell as it is in the field. So hence we convert it into module, which then gives the required life, which ideally in solar module is a 25 years life. It also provides the performance because you are using the key critical components, which ensures that it will perform and give the required output over a period of time. Also, it can be tested for the reliability because it has to be placed in field where it is, going through all the weather conditions, may it be humidity, may it be temperature, all the different weather conditions it has to go through, and that's the reason module can also be tested for the reliability, and of course cost part, because the required output is needed so that it can be installed in field, and by connecting the solar cells you can get the required output as well. So hence we definitely need to have a module, and a solar cell on its own cannot be displayed in field. Moving to the components used, these are the key critical components: frame, glass, encapsulant, solar cells, backsheet, junction box, interconnects, bus bar, labels front and back side, and of course nowadays RFID is also compulsory as per the MNRE guidelines. So now we'll dwell more into the detailing of components used. So solar frame, why is solar frame required? Basically, it holds the module together. It also gives you a structural stability from the point of view of thermal mechanical tensions. It also have a proper mounting and grounding holes so that it can be mounted in field, either in rooftop or in ground mounted projects. Here, the important point is what kind of design and analysis have you done while designing your solar frame. So it's not purely the width, gauge and weight which decides the longevity, the structural stability of a frame, but it is a proper design analysis. The other most important component is solar glass. It helps as a barrier against water vapor, dirt. Also has got a very high transmittivity and a very low reflection. We use very low iron tempered, toughened, high transmittivity solar glass. It also adds the physical strength and integrity to the solar module. As far as encapsulant is concerned, encapsulant gives you encapsulation property, which is basically nothing but the binding of cells between glass and backsheet. It gives light coupling, which is nothing but highest transparency and the minimum light reflection. It gives you electrical insulation, basically insulating the conducting parts internally and externally. It gives you mechanical support by protecting solar cell from shock, pressure or load. It also gives you weather resistance by protecting self or its cells, other component cells, backsheet from UV and stresses. Basically, the parameters with reference to the features like encapsulation are thickness and adhesion strength. With reference to light and coupling, the parameters are majorly the transparency, and refractive index. With the reference to electrical insulation, they are dielectric strength and volumes resistivity. With respect to mechanical support, it should be tensile strength, elongation, and shore hardness. And of course, for weather resistance, it would be the reliability test which we conduct on the solar modules as UV exposure, damp heat, thermal cycling. Going further, so this is another critical component, backsheet. The backsheet comprises of 3 layers. So if you see the air side, which works as an armor, which gives you UV protection and chemical resistance. The middle layer gives you the strength, insulation, and the barrier. And the coupler, which is basically nothing but the cell side, gives you bridging between encapsulant, and it also helps reflect the light. Basically, we all know nowadays that all the systems are being, using high VDC, 1500 volt VDC. So when you use 1500 volt DC modules, there are a couple of components wherein the specifications changes. Here in this case, backsheet is one of the components where the specifications are changed as per the IEC and BIS norms. The insulation layer, which is the middle layer, has to have minimum double the thickness of the original 1000 volt solar module, solar backsheet. Backsheets are also available in various compositions. If you see the right side, there is a diagram shown wherein you can see the various layers which are glued together by the help of adhesive. So the air side layer, basically, because it has to go through different environment wear and tear conditions, people use different varieties, may it be polyimide based, may it be PVDF based or PVF based. Junction box is another component which changes when you change the 1500 volt DC system. So here, typically the components, the diodes used or the metal part used are not getting any change. It is only the insulation material which we are using for the cables, connectors, and the covers should be capable of handling 1500 volt DC. Junction box are majorly of 2 different types: soldering type or clamping type. When you have soldering type, then there are 2 different types of junction box available in market. It can be half potted or full potted. When we say half potted is something where all your diodes which we are using are actually potted, and full potted is something when you do when you are through with your soldering, you also pot the balance of the junction box. So normally people use 4-rail 3-diode junction boxes, and these diodes protects each string, which prevents reverse current. Basically, it helps you while shading. RTP sealant is cost constituent wise very small component in module making. It is hardly 1%, but it has got immense importance in module making. It is used as adhesion, sealing, and insulation purpose because it joins your solar frame with your laminate. It should have super resistance to ultraviolet, rain, sleet, contamination, and hail. It provides you additional protection against moisture, mechanical and thermal shock, and also should be resistance to oxidation, corrosion, and related cracking. If you see below, we have a photograph. Silicon seal, because it is a silicon sealant, it has to be cured in a temperature and humidity controlled environment. The manufacturer basically gives you the recommendations whereby within 25 to 30 degree temperature and 55 to 65 degree relative humidity, you need to put these modules in horizontal position and should cure your modules so that in future it is giving you a required 25 years life. So now we move to a manufacturing process. So first is the input of cells. Definitely we should test those cells first. These cells are fed into your Tabor stringer. You have a separate table where you are preparing a glass. Glass has to be cleaned first, and then you are putting first layer of EV in that. Then you do tabbing stringing. Tabbing is basically every cell has to be tabbed. You are using interconnect. So first cell has to be tabbed, and then when you need to connect it to other cells, basically when you need to string it, then you're doing a stringing process. The module is nothing but a matrix. If you see the right side, you can see a 10 by 6 matrix. So here you prepare a strings of 10 cells each. Then basically you are doing a layer, whereby you are also putting another layer of encapsulant, and then over that you are using a layer of backsheet. So once you are actually through with this, you are also doing a busing. You are acting all these cells in series. There are 4 terminals coming out from the end side. All these cells are connected into series so that you get 4 terminals out. So this is a sandwich which is already prepared now. Then you do lamination process. So traditionally, if you see solar module manufacturing, this is the only process which actually used to happen automated, because it is required to use equipment only for that. All other processes were earlier done by manual, can be done by manual also. But it is very, very important to use a proper equipment here, because it is a very, very critical process here. Once you are done with the lamination, you get the extra sides, because your encapsulant is already melted, you get the extra flowing from all sides. You do a trimming process. Then you are connecting, this becomes your laminate, and this, then you are connecting with the help of silicon sealant, you are connecting it and doing framing. And then, as I said, that you get 4 terminals outside. You are going to terminate those here in your junction box, which is a 4-rail 3-die junction box. And then you do a flash testing to know the output of the module. Based on the output, you also do the labeling. Here's your solar module ready to be transported to your finished goods stores. So we have already covered the manufacturing process. So you can see a cross-sectional view of solar modules where you can find each and every component being seen. Here you can see how the busing is done, how the cells are connected to the other cells, positive to negative, like that, and it is then connected. All the 60 or 72 cells are connected into series. You can also see a silicon sealant. So as we have already covered the component used, the manufacturing process, Module also have some critical electrical parameters, which we are going to cover up now. Short circuit current is basically nothing but a highest current which can be drawn from a solar cell. It is the current when the voltage across the solar cell is zero. Similarly, open circuit voltage, it's nothing but the voltage difference between two terminals when no current is drawn or supplied. So Pmax is the peak output of the module at the standard testing conditions. And at Pmax, the voltage and the current which you get is nothing but IMP and VMP. So efficiency of the module is the key parameter for anybody to consider in the systems, because it is nothing but your per square meter how much output you can get. So if you see the definition, it is nothing but maximum energy output by the total energy input in a given area. So we are here talking about cell as well as module efficiency. So efficiency would be nothing but the Pmax divided by the input, light input, which is nothing but your 1000 watts per square meter, and the area of a particular cell. Similarly, in terms of modules, the area will be the module area. Now here, the important thing is that, typically every time you will see that the module efficiency is lower than the cell efficiency, because when you are using cells and converting it into modules, you need to create gaps, between the cell to cell, as also the boundaries need to have certain spacing, because of which that particular area is not able to convert or give you output. So hence, module efficiency is always lesser than your cell efficiency. We'll also give you an example how it is calculated. So we have a cell area of 1.9325 square meter. You can see that it's a 72 cell module and the output Pmax is 335. Because irradiation at STC is 1000 watts per square meter, you can see below PV module efficiency works out to be 17.33%. So fill factor is nothing but a measure of quality of solar cell. So mathematically how it is expressed, you can see higher the fill factor, higher is going to be your output. The ideal can be at P theoretical value, you can see in the graph. As squarer your graph will be, as high your fill factor will be. So we have covered up the electrical parameters. You can see how a module datasheet looks like. Other than the electrical parameter, these are the other details which are given for solar modules in the particular module TDS. Because solar modules cannot be used as it is in the field. All the solar module manufacturers have to first go through the bare minimum certifications, may it be design or safety or other various tests with respect to PID, ammonia test, salt, third-party PAN file certification. So there are various certifications which are already mentioned here. 61215 and 61730 are the basics design and safety parameters, design and safety standards. 61701 is to do with salt mist. 62716 is to do with ammonia testing. So we have other different certifications as well, which are to do with wear and tear also. So all these things are covered in the module testing. So as we have already discussed about the manufacturing process components and the electrical parameters, it's very much important to also understand the module reliability. Module reliability is nothing but the ability of a module to perform for the required number of years under the various weather conditions. Now here you can see a graph. So these are the types of failures you can encounter in the module over short, mid, and long term. So under module reliability, you are actually trying to do a lot of accelerated tests. But here we are not discussing about those tests, but what we are discussing here are the types of failures you encountered in the module. So when you talk about infant failures are nothing but the defects which you can see during the initial up to 6 months time on the modules. So the first being LID. In LID, loss of performance is observed within the crystalline silicon modules when they are very first, exposed to the sunlight for the very first time. This is actually caused during the manufacturing process where you have traces of oxygen included in the molten silicon. The other types of infant failures are contact failures, string interconnect, glass breakage, loose frame. Then midlife failures are something where up to 5 years of the life you can encounter these other problems, where you can see glass AR degradation is one of the failure. In fact, here what happens nowadays, everyone has started using anti-reflected coating glass, and it is nothing but it enhances your output by 1.5 to 2%. Now, over a period of time, because you are cleaning, repeatedly cleaning those modules deployed in field, this ARC coating goes off. So hence, this is one of the, this also causes the degradation. PID is another failure. It's a phenomenon which actually affects negatively to the cells of modules, whereby the cells, the module degrades. Accelerated degradation happens in solar modules, and whereby the performance is also exponentially dropped. It is nothing but potential difference of module voltage to the earth and are caused because of high system voltage, high temperature, and humidity. These are the factors affecting PID. You need to have a proper diode, which should have a required number of life. That is another failure. If you are not using a proper diode, it can fail. Set interconnect breakages if a proper soldering is not happening. In the long term, if you see, we have EVA discoloring, this delamination, cracks, corrosion of cell and interconnects. So here if you see the EVA discoloration, it actually happens because of the UV additives which you are adding. So you need to have a proper EVA selection. Delamination can happen because of improper lamination cycle, whereby your cross-linking is not happening properly. Also, it can happen because of the improper storage handling of EVA. EVA is a shelf life item and has to be used within the prescribed timeline given by the manufacturer. Normally it is 6 months, and with the premium packing, you can also achieve 9 months time. It can also happen when the other components like glass, cell, or backsheet are contaminated. A foreign particle is already there inside. So it can also happen because of that. Corrosion of cell and interconnect. We all know that we are using EVA where because of the moisture that there can be acetic acid formation which can then corrode your cells and interconnect. So it's very, very much important to use a proper EVA and also do a proper lamination. You need to have a proper equipment in place. So these are the various failures we discussed which are actually affecting module reliability. Now we are component. So if you see snail trail, this is nothing but it's initiated by solar cell microcracks, where the silver particles are actually migrated towards the cracked cells. So it is nothing but a cell fault where the silver particles are actually migrating in the cracked area, and moisture over about that actually also a driving factor to this. So here we can attend it by putting a balanced EVA encapsulant formulation along with high moisture barrier backsheet to resist this problem. So we can also see EVA browning and discoloration happening. As I mentioned earlier also, it can happen because of imbalance ratio of UV additives and the antioxidants. Again, here we need to use a balanced EVA formulation. Delamination can happen because of an improper lamination cycle or the raw material selection is if it is not done properly, or the lamination is not done properly. PID can happen because of low volume resistivity of in the EVA and the high impurities, high sodium charges in your glass, or the metallic impurities, or low or poor front passivation in front cells. So these are the typical failures encountered in the backsheet. You can see the yellowing is one of the failure. It happens in cell size as well as air side. It happens mostly in the PT based backsheet because of the UV discoloration. Here again, proper backsheet selection has to be done to avoid this kind of failure, along with choosing a balanced EVA formulation. The other failures can be cracking at the cell side as well as air side. It is again due to the use of improper raw materials in the backsheet. So basically improper hydrolysis resistance, we say that, which is nothing but measure of quality to resist heat and humidity. Here, when we are using a material, we should do a proper pressure cooker testing to measure the hydrolysis resistance. Proper retention, proper selection of raw material and retention of mechanical properties is necessary to control this kind of failures. Interconnect breakage failures can be because of the improper soldering. Hotspot can happen because of continuous shading of your modules, or it can also happen because of the inherent cell cracks, which can be actually avoided by a proper handling mechanism, also installing your modules in the shadow-free area. So as we have already covered all these things, we are also trying to give you a reference of a third-party test. IIT Mumbai conducted a test wherein they identified the various defects. The selection of module was done from various regions, from the various climatic conditions, the installations they considered on the study. So what we are trying to show here is a risk mitigation plan, that how a particular defect, what kind of particular defects are encountered in field, what are the probable causes. We actually try to extrapolate it, and we also try to analyze it, and this is how we have prepared a risk mitigation plan for that. So once you know the defect, you also, when you analyze, you come to know the probable causes. And how do you attend it? By putting in the best resources, may it be in terms of machines, may it be in terms of processes, checks and controls. So if you see, we have already discussed these kind of these defects in the earlier sheets, but let me take an example of discoloration of encapsulant or encapsulant delamination. So the probable cause here is nothing but the poor encapsulation quality, encapsulant quality, and the process. So here, as Renesas, we use a 3-stage laminator from Meyer Burger, which has got hybrid heating system, very high temperature homogeneity, and pin lift system, which reduces bow effect and avoids cell breakage. Because when you put your sandwich into a laminator, the sudden increase of temperature is there. Your laminator actually is heat up to 145-degree temperature. So when you are from normal environment, when you're putting it inside and directly putting it in the platen, there can be bow into the solar glass, because of which you can have your cells can encounter cracks, micro cracks. So this laminator, basically what it does, it has got pin lift, whereby it lifts your module to 5 mm, up to 5 mm hard, so that it is not directly coming to the complete area, is not getting directly in contact with that high temperature, and the bow can be avoided by this. From the process checks and control point of view, if you see, so we as a manufacturer, we already have European automated line of the raw material. Also, the raw material which we are using are the top class global quality from global quality suppliers. We have online EVA defect detection and isolation system. Incoming quality check. in terms of doing a raw material check, gel content test in the EV, and peel strength. We also do weekly evaluations of all the machine status by doing temperature, homogeneity, gel and peel. So what we are trying to show here is that a proper risk mitigation plan can actually avoid these defects which can arise, either in short term, mid term, or a long term in the solar modules. Again, these are some other defects: hot spots, interconnect breakage, dark sheet discoloration. We already discussed these all things in our slides. So as Renesas, we have invested in the best. So we have the Turbo Stringer, which is, we have best in class European automated lines, first of all. And this line comprises of the equipments from best of the European suppliers. Turbo Stringer is from Team Technique, which has got very less breakages. It has got IR soldering, which actually is not touching the cell directly. Also, we have a 3-stage laminator, Meyer-Burger's 3-stage laminator, where, as I mentioned, that temperature homogeneity is very less. Also, it has got pin lift design, whereby in the lamination stage also you can avoid cell cracks, which otherwise can happen in a pure oil heat, laminators. This has got hybrid heating system. Also, people use forced cooling. Once the laminator is done, it is very much heated, and they do a sudden cooling, whereby your encapsulant can have some kind of problems by pinholes. So this has got an inbuilt cooling system as well. So you can avoid that forced sudden cooling. We have EL machine, electroluminescence machine. We do pre and post lamination. We do EL at pre and post lamination stages, where we have a very high intensity 23 megapixel camera, which can extrapolate the images in a very high resolution, whereby you can check and control the micro cracks there itself. We do have RTV curing chamber, where, as I mentioned, that it is a temperature and humidity controlled chamber, where you put your modules in a horizontal position and you keep them for a certain prescribed hours, and then take it out on a first come first serve basis, a first in first out basis. We have a Spire Sun Simulator flash testing equipment, which is a AAA plus. So we know when we say AAA plus, it is nothing but the 3 different parameters, which are actually nothing but your radiation, which is 1000 watts per square meter. It is the temperature 25 degrees centigrade and air mass of 1.5. So all these 3 parameters, it is calibrated. It is capable of testing to the accurate levels. We do have implemented AOI, which is automated optical inspection, which can check the alignment of your soldering, what you have done, and any other foreign particles. You can see it in the image itself. You need not to handle your modules separately. It is inline process. And as I mentioned that, module being a glass item where your solar cells are only 200 micron thickness, it cannot be handled by bare hands. You need to have automated lines to avoid multiple handling, thereby you reduce and eliminate the risks which can be otherwise caused. So that's all for the day. We will open up for the Q&A. Vinay?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rawat. And thank you all for joining us today. We're sorry we had a little trouble in the beginning. So quickly heading on to our Q&A section. As you all are aware, today we have Mr. Bhupendra Rawat, who heads business development with us, who has been leading us through this presentation. And we also have our polymer specialist, Mr. Ashish Singh. So both of them will be taking your questions. So please feel free to continue to send questions to us, whether it is related to polymers or module manufacturing in general. So the first question is to Ashish.
Yeah.
Ashish, we have someone here asking us what will happen if the EVA has a low GSM.
Okay. As Bhupender already told that the role of EVA is to provide the insulation in the module. So if EVA GSM is generally called the gram per unit square meter, if the EVA GSM is less, then there will be less EVA between like cell and glass, either cell and EVA. So generally, if it is below a critical level, then that will be a kind of insulation failure may happen. It is not recommended to use GSM lower than a critical level from where it gives a negative impact on the insulation. So,
Okay.
so it will affect the insulation first primary, and secondary it may create a kind of voids and bubbles if the GSM is really too low.
Oh, okay. And just to go a little further into encapsulants, Mr. Hassan is asking us what's the difference between PID free versus PID resistant in terms of encapsulants.
So the word is like PID free and PID resistant both has a significant difference. So PID free means the module is like the encapsulant is completely resistant to PID, irrespective of cell quality. So either cell is PID resistant, either is poor cell, but encapsulant should prevent the PID completely in the module. So that is called PID free encapsulant, whereas PID resistant encapsulant, that it supports the module to resist from the PID with the help of other components like cell. So when cell is PID resistant and EVA is PID resistant, then definitely your module is going to be a PID free module, resistant module. But PID free means it's irrespective of any other component support, either irrespective of your PB offset box or whatever you put in the plant, your module will be PID free because of the encapsulant. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Ashish. So just to summarize what I understood, what we're saying is that the best case scenario is to have a PID free cell, to also have PID resistant or PID free EVA, and along with that, if people can, depending on their system size, they should also consider negative grounding or using a PID box. So just to bring
Yes.
Mr. Rawat in here, Abhijit Singh is asking us what a lot of inverter vendors and several other players these days are recommending PID boxes as a separate solution. What is your take on that?
So if you have, first thing for that, you need to know whether your modules used in the system are PID free or not, because PID can be attended in the module level. It can also be attended in the inverter level where you are doing negative grounding. So if you have done this, I think you are safe. And then, yes, there are other mechanisms where people, there is a company called Pitbull who was already producing this PID box. So if you encounter this problem, if you have not done the negative grinding, neither have you used PID free modules, then definitely you can use this PID boxes in the inverter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Going back to EVA, Darshan is asking us, Ashish, if it is necessary to use BHT powder to find out about the gel content of EVA. So quickly, before you answer that, if you could tell us the significance of gel content and then take Darshan's question.
Okay. So in EVA encapsulant, the important parameter is gel content, because whatever EVA parameter we talk about, like insulation, either mechanical support, either transparency, whatever, it comes only when your gel content reaches a particular level of 75% and above. Okay, so gel content is really important. If gel content is not lower than the 75% in the module, then those parameters will be compromised and the module reliability will be at the stake. So coming to BST, it belongs to a measurement method where we measure gel content via like solvent extraction method, where we use a kind of solvent like toluene or xylene, and we use a BST powder. The role of BST powder is to just prevent any cross-linking of EVA in the gel method, because you are heating the toluene and keeping EVA piece in that. So if there is a consistent heat for 8 hours or 10 hours, there is a possibility that EVA gel will get further increased. So to prevent that phenomena, people use the BST powder. It is necessary to add BST powder in your solvent to prevent any EVA cross-linking in your testing method. Further testing method that will lead a wrong result.
Thank you, Ashish. The next question is to Mr. Rawat. We looked at the reliability curve a little bit earlier. So one of our participants is asking us about the 3% and 10% on the module reliability curve, and also about the warranty line. So if you could quickly take us back to that slide and just explain this bit to us.
Okay. So
yes.
So here, if you see, less than 3%, if you see, there are LID and the glass AR degradation are the main parameters which are actually responsible for first 3%. Then the next 7%, if you see, are contribution of EVA discoloration, delamination, cracked cells, isolation. So basically, how as a company, as Renasys, how we are attempting to do this is that we have every 60 days on a periodic basis, we are taking the samples from the manufacturing and put it under accelerated testing, where we conduct all those accelerated testing like UV exposure, humidity freeze, thermal cycling, and attend to all these problems. So that, we also, whenever we are inducting a new material, the same process is used to test it properly, whether it can give you a required life or not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. The next question is actually to both of y'all. I think if Ashish can take this from the EVA perspective, EVA backsheet, and Mr. Rawat from the module perspective. Hassan is asking us, what is the Renasys methodology to check actual in-field degradations after 1, 2, 5, 10 years, etc.? What is Renasys doing on that front?
Okay. So I will reply from the encapsulant side, Bhupenderji, then you start from the module. So from encapsulant side, Renasys Bangalore, we install certain plants in our own factory, and we monitor those plants as a test bed, and we like do yearly, monthly kind of analysis of the data generation as well as visual inspection. So because once we sell a module to any other client, it's very difficult to track that. So this is the reason we keep in-house plant and we do analysis. So we have around the 3-4 test bed where we are doing approximately from 3.5 years, 4 years. We have a continuous data of the EVA and backsheet, whatever used for making the modules. Yeah, yeah.
Mr.
Yeah. So as my colleague Ashish said that we are not only doing in the lab, the testing in the lab, but also on the field we are doing the testing. In fact, we have a full-fledged NABL approved lab at our Bangalore facility where we are doing all those testings like pressure cooker, all those testings which are required for raw material testing. Plus, in our Hyderabad facility, we have an innovation lab which is also accredited by Intertech, where we have 7 chambers, we can do all those extended life testing done by otherwise a lab, outside lab like TUV or UL. So we, as I was telling earlier also, that we keep on doing this on a periodic, so that we, if at all there is any failure in terms of raw material usage or in terms of any process, we identify and then remove it.
Okay, thanks. The next question that we have here is related to module cleaning. So Abhijit says that normally people have to set up an RO plant where there is a high TDS level, but is it really required for cleaning of modules? Is it really required if the water is hard to have a RO plant close to the PV installation?
So basically the purpose of, hello.
Yes, please.
Basically, yeah, if your water is very hard and has got a lot of impurities, then it can actually react with the coating, ARC coating, and spoil your coating, and then degradation can increase. So hence it is advised to check the manual provided by a manufacturer on what type of water to use, what type of cleaning mechanism to be used. Definitely, it should not use acid-based surfactants. So yes, it is requiring a bare minimum quality of water.
Okay, thank you. The next question, Ashish, is for you. Dielectric strength of EVA is high. So does the PV installation then require a lightning arrestor to reduce the risk of lightning striking?
Okay. So the dielectric strength of EVA is approximately 25 to 30 kilovolt for particular layer what we use in the between glass and the cell, either cell and the backseat. So any kind of surge in the voltage coming from lightning which is more than 30 kilovolt, then definitely it is going to harm the module. And there is not only EVA, there are many components in the module like junction box, cable connectors, and your backseat. Yes. So all should be having resistant to lightning. So it is not possible. So some polymers are having lower, some are having higher. So that's why lightning arrestor is needed for the modules to prevent it. And as long as I understand, the voltage surge coming from those lightning is more than many kilovolts. So it may be certain cases where it's very high, maybe 50, 60 kilovolt, then the module will not sustain the voltage.
Okay. Anything that you would like to add, Mr. Rawat?
No, as he rightly mentioned that lighting arrestor is used for the protection, insulation, and connector of the system. So definitely, it is not only the EVA which is responsible. There are other components as well. So hence it is required.
Okay, thank you. Another follow-up question that we've got to module cleaning is related to the pH and TDS. If you could just tell us what the values are for the water's pH and TDS when it's being used to clean modules.
I think we have already written in our manual the total dissolved solubles. I think it is in the range of 75 to 100.
Okay.
So to attend to this kind of things, whatever we, whenever we are submitting, offer to a customer, we are also providing them with a proper, manual, which not only covers the handling, storage, installation, commissioning, everything is covered in that manual, and we request all our valuable customers to follow those guidelines. Yeah.
Thank you. So just a quick note to all our participants here. If you would like to access the module handling document, it is available on our website www.renewsysworld.com. So please feel free to take a look. And in case you have any queries, you're also most welcome to write to us. In fact, we highly recommend that if you're having some confusion with regards to selecting a cleaning agent or handling or anything, in fact, related to the module, to please write to us directly, and we'll definitely get back to you, or you can be in touch with your sales team representative, because I think, like Mr. Rawat has taken us through all the stages of module manufacturing, we do our best to ensure that the highest quality encapsulant, backsheet, and cells are used to make the module that comes to you, and we also ensure that it is handled with minimum human intervention. So we want you all to feel rest assured that we are doing our bit, and any questions that you have, no matter how big or small, you're most welcome to reach out to us. We have some forms on our website as well where you can submit your queries and we'll get in touch with you all. Mr. Rawat, another follow-up question from Hassan is with regards to salt deposition. How can modules that have a layer of salt deposition on them be treated?
So yeah, a good question. See, as you know that there is already a IEC standard for salt mist test, which is 61701, and it also has got 6 severity levels. So as far as resistors modules are concerned, we have already done the testing on levels, severity level 6. But then if it is a particular, location where the salt is very, very high, there, I think obviously you should have a module frame which should have a higher anodizing thickness. Also, the type of backsheet you are using should be different. I think these are the things which need to be taken care, other than your other module mounting structures and other things. But from module point of view, I think the frame has to be taken care, because it is the normal anodizing thickness is 15 microns always. So if you give all these details to a manufacturer, he can preferably tell you that what type of anodizing thickness would be required to attain to that kind of salt conditions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rawat. The next question is to Ashish. Ashish, is there a solution to retrofit cracks or damage to the backsheet? I think we have lost Ashish. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's there.
Okay. So if crack is because of any degradation, then definitely it cannot be reworked. So there are certain products in the market that we use as a rework of the backsheet, like we have to cut the particular backsheet area and you have to put one kind of pressure sensitive sheet and you have to seal it. So that way only it can be done, but it is a kind of temporary solution. It may be lasting another 4 or 5 years or 3-4 years. Then again you have to replace it. So in case of module degradation, crack or any kind of formation in the backsheet is really not reworkable in an effective way. But yes, for temporary way it is possible.
Okay, thank you. The next question that we've received is, does spectral loss or gain need to be considered for crystalline silicon modules?
Just question I'm reading. So, does spectral loss or gain should be considered for crystalline module? So I think in that case, spectral, we should consider the spectral loss, because spectral gain we don't get, because lots of disturbance are there, like the glass is there, the EVA is there. So generally the light reaching on the cell is not reaching the same light which is coming from the sun spectrum. So in that sense, it's a loss. What I understood, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm just quickly looking at the other questions that we have. I think some of them we have been answering directly as well.
Mr. Hassan, sorry for interrupting.
Yes.
Hassan has had asked one more question, I suppose. Is there any special cleaning solvent available for salt deposition due to long period? So see, basically, as I mentioned to you that, unless we really analyze the type of deposition and what it is, I think it will be very, very difficult to, upfront say you that, because we normally otherwise, if you see, we are actually asking our customers in the extreme cases to use a normal soap water. So I don't think, if it is such a kind of deposition, it will easily go with the normal soap water, but otherwise we can evaluate it and get back to you, Mr. Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Rawat. Another question from Abhijit is related to earthing of the modules. He writes, and I'm just going to read this. Actually, PV module aluminum frames are ionized, but most EPC players do the earthing of the structure and not of the module. And some are connected the potential earthing by connected earthing cables with the help of a proper lug. But in normal conditions, the module frame is overlapped with an ionized layer. So EPC players are doing earthing using star-washed technique and removing the ionized layer of the frame. Is it possible that this process may lead to the start of corrosion of the module frame?
See, I think what we are actually prescribing is also that using star washer. Basically, if you see, I think that takes care because that is recommended by the module manufacturer itself. So I think it can be done. There should not be a problem.
Okay, thank you. Is transportation testing, that is IEC 62759/1, applicable for modules transported within India, Mr. Rawat?
So it is still in the draft stage. I think, it is yet to come out, and as I understand, our company is also involved in, they are in continuous touch with the committee. But yes, it is still in draft stage, and it covers solar PV modules as well. But
Okay.
it is in draft stage.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Rawat. Thank you so much, Mr. Singh, for joining us today at this presentation, and thank you all who have participated. We are definitely going to be sharing this presentation and the video of the webinar on our website. So do drop by to take a look. And any further questions that you all have, you all are most welcome to share them with us. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Please stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.